Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, to a special vice presidential debate edition of Generally Irritable. Sorry, I'm messing with my mic here. I was just noticing how weird it was. Here we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The vice presidential debate has started, and I can already tell it's going to be exciting. Mr. Walls looks very animated, so let's just get right into it. You guys, still figuring out some of this audio stuff, so if you hear an echo or something weird, let me know in the chat so that we can figure out how we configure correctly. All right, share. So I want to also share audio. Do I want to share differently? I want to share like this. Share audio. Share. No, I can't. Let's see. Here we go.
Myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
Can you
I was
hear it?
raised in a working class
I can't
family.
hear it.
My mother required food assistance for periods of
No,
her
I
life.
can't
My
hear
grandmother
the desk.
required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went
it's kind of
to
volume.
college on the
Can you
GI
hear
Bill
that, John?
after I enlisted in the Marine
Hey,
Corps
guys,
and
if
served
you're
in
watching,
Iraq.
can
And
you
so I
hear it in the
stand
chat?
here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once.
I can't hear it.
Okay, guys, if you are watching,
Nope, can't hear it in the chat.
chat is saying they can't hear it either.
No, I'm on YouTube. I can't hear it. What happens when you have a complicated setup?
Okay, say that again, honey.
This is what happens when you have a complicated setup. Yeah.
What if I do it like this?
I think that's the right approach to take with the Israel question.
Thank you, Senator.
I can hear that.
Governor Walz, do you care to respond to any
can
of
hear
the
it.
allegations?
Well, look, Donald Trump
All right,
was
put in
in
the
office.
chat, y'all.
We'll
Can you
sometimes
hear it?
hear a revisionist history, but when Donald Trump was in office, it was Donald Trump who we had a coalition of nations that had boxed Iran's nuclear program in, the inability to advance it. Donald Trump pulled that program and put nothing else in its place. So Iran is closer to a nuclear weapon than they were before because of Donald Trump's fickle leadership. And when Iran shot down an American aircraft in international airspace, Donald Trump tweeted, because that's the standard diplomacy of Donald Trump. And when Iranian missiles did fall near U.S. troops and they received traumatic brain injuries, Donald Trump wrote it off as headaches. Look, our allies understand that Donald Trump is fickle. He will go to whoever has the most flattery or where it makes sense to him. Steady leadership like you witnessed today, like you witnessed in April. Both Iranian attacks were repelled.
Both
Our
Iranian
coalition is
attacks
strong,
were
and we need
thanks
the steady
to
leadership that Kamala Harris is
Kamala,
Senator
thanks to
Vance, the U.S.
the
did have a
Harris
diplomatic
Biden
deal with
administration
Iran to
giving Iran
temporarily pause
$16
parts of
billion.
its nuclear program, and President Trump did exit that deal. He recently said, just 5 days ago, the U.S. must now make a diplomatic deal with Iran because the consequences are impossible. Did he make a mistake? You have 1 minute.
Well, first of all, Margaret, diplomacy is not a dirty word, but I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump. Who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years?
Yeah.
And the answer is your running mate, not mine. Donald Trump consistently made the
That's right.
world more secure. Now, we talk about what the sequence of events that led us to where we are right now, and you can't ignore October the 7th, which I appreciate Governor Waltz bringing up. But when did Iran and Hamas and their
Why does
proxies
he
attack
look
Israel?
so
It was
nervous
during the
and
administration
fidgety?
of Kamala Harris. So Governor Waltz can criticize Donald Trump's tweets, but effective, smart diplomacy and peace through strength is how you bring stability back to a very broken world. Donald Trump has already done it once before. Ask yourself at home, when was the last
chomping
time,
at the
I'm
bit,
40 years old, when
waiting
was
to
the
get to
last
say
time
something.
that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
Gentlemen, we have a lot to get to.
Yep.
Nora?
Facts.
Margaret, thank you. Let's turn now to Hurricane Helene. The storm could become one of the deadliest on record. More than 160 people are dead and hundreds more are missing. Scientists say climate change makes these hurricanes
Climate
larger,
change.
stronger,
Climate change.
and more deadly.
Oh,
because
you
of
mean
the
how
historic rain.
we're creating
Senator
microclimates all over the place with these windmills and frickin' solar
More than
farms?
60% of Republicans under the age of 45 favor the U.S. taking steps to try and reduce climate
Oh, wait, you mean how the climate change efforts are actually making things worse and are worse for the environment?
reduce the impact of climate change. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sure. So first of all, let's start with the hurricane, because it's an unbelievable, unspeakable human tragedy. I just saw today actually a photograph of two grandparents on a roof with a 6-year-old child, and it was the last photograph ever taken of them because the roof collapsed and those innocent people lost their lives. And I'm sure Governor Waltz joins me in saying our hearts go out to those innocent people, our prayers go out to them, and we want as robust and aggressive as a federal response as we can get to save as many lives as possible, and then, of course, afterwards, to help the people in those communities rebuild. I mean, these are communities that I love. Some of them I know very personally in Appalachia, all across the Southeast.
Yeah,
they
that's
need
his
their government
hood.
to do their job, and I commit that when Donald Trump is president again, the government will put the citizens of this country first when they suffer from a disaster. Now, Nora, you asked about climate change. I think this is a very important issue. Look, a lot of people are justifiably worried about all these crazy weather patterns. I think it's important for us, first of all, to say Donald Trump and I support clean air, clean water. We want the environment to be cleaner and safer. But one of the things that I've noticed some of our Democratic friends talking a lot about is a concern about carbon emissions, this idea that carbon emissions drives all of the climate change. Well, let's just say that's true, just for the sake of argument, so we're not arguing about weird science. Let's just say that's true. Well, if you believe that, what would you want to do? The answer is that you'd want to reshore as much American manufacturing as possible, and you'd want to produce as much energy as possible in the United States of America, because we're the cleanest economy in the entire world. What have Kamala Harris's policies
pivot.
actually led to? More energy production in China, more manufacturing overseas, more doing business in some of the dirtiest parts of the entire
That was
world. And when I say
brilliant.
that, I mean the amount of carbon emissions they're
Look
doing
at-
per unit of
look at
economic
his
output.
face.
So if we actually care about getting cleaner air and cleaner water, the
drag
best
right
thing
now.
to do is to double down and invest in American workers and the American people. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris has done exactly the opposite.
Wow.
Governor Walz, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Well, we got close to an
Nice
agreement
pivot.
because all those things are happening. Look, first of all, it is a horrific tragedy with this hurricane. And my heart goes out to the folks that are down there in contact with the governors. I serve as co-chair of the Council of Governors as we work together on these emergency managements. Governors know no partisanship. They work together. So all of the governors and the emergency responders are on the ground. Those happen on the front end. The federal government comes in, makes sure they're there to that we recover. But we're still in that phase where we need to make sure that they're staying there, staying focused. Now, look, coming back to the climate change issue, there's no doubt this thing roared onto the scene faster and stronger than anything we've seen.
Check this out. State
Oh,
Farm was charging me
bro.
$179
Come on,
for
bro.
auto insurance per month. No, thank you.
Joke that these things would make more beachfront property to be able to invest in. What we've seen out of the Harris administration now, the Biden-Harris administration, is we've seen this investment. We've seen massive investments, the biggest in global history that we've seen in the Inflation Reduction Act, has created jobs all across the country.
You mean the
2,000 in
Inflation
Jeffersonville,
Increasing
Ohio,
Act?
taking the EV technology that we invented and making it here. 200,000 jobs across the country. The largest solar manufacturing plant in North America sits in Minnesota. But my farmers know climate
Minnesota.
change is real. They've seen 500-year droughts, 500-year floods back to back. But what they're doing is adapting, and this has allowed them to tell me, look, I harvest corn, I harvest soybean, and I harvest wind. We are producing more natural gas and more oil at any time than we ever have. We're also producing more clean energy. So the solution for us is to continue to move forward, that climate change is real. Reducing our impact is absolutely critical, but this is not a false choice. You can do that at the same time you're creating the jobs that we're seeing all across the country.
Wow.
That's exactly what this administration has done. We are seeing us becoming an energy superpower for the future,
Why are
not
you
just
such
the
a
current.
liar?
And that's what absolutely makes sense. And then we start thinking about how do we mitigate these disasters.
Thank you. Senator, I want to give you an opportunity to respond there. The governor mentioned that President Trump has called climate change a hoax. Do you agree?
Well, look, what the president has said is that if the Democrats, in particular Kamala Harris and her leadership, if they really believe that climate change is serious, what they would be doing is more manufacturing and more energy production in the United States of America, and that's not what they're doing. So clearly, Kamala Harris herself doesn't believe her own rhetoric on this. If she did, she would actually agree with Donald Trump's energy policies. Now, something Governor Walz said I think is important to touch upon, because when we talk about clean energy, I think that's a slogan that often the Democrats will use here. And I'm talking, of course, about the Democratic leadership. And the real issue is that if you're spending hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars of American taxpayer money on solar panels that are made in China, number one, you're going to make the economy dirtier. We should be making more of those solar panels here in the United States of America. Some of them are, Tim, but a lot of them are being made overseas in China, especially the components that go into those solar panels. So if you really want to make the environment cleaner, you've got to invest in more energy production. We haven't built a nuclear facility, I think, one in the past 40 years.
Senator.
Natural gas, we've got to invest more in it. Kamala Harris has done the opposite. That's raised energy prices and also meant that we're doing
Senator,
worse by
your
the
time
climate.
is up. Governor, would you like to respond?
Well, look, we're producing more natural gas than we ever have. There's no moratorium on that. We're producing more oil. But the folks know, and like I said again,
Yeah, there's
these
no
are not
moratorium,
liberal folks.
just
These are not
on
folks that are Green
leases.
New Deal folks. These are farmers that have been drought one year, massive flooding the next year. They understand that it makes sense. Look, our #1 export cannot be topsoil from erosion from these massive storms. We saw it in Minnesota this summer. And thinking about how do we respond to that, we're thinking ahead on this.
We'll
And
say
what
he's a
Kamala
better
Harris has been
speaker
able
and
to do
debater
in
than
Minnesota,
Kamala Harris is.
We're starting
Yeah.
to weatherproof some of these things. The infrastructure law
better-
that was passed
he's a
allows us to
better,
think about mitigation in the future.
advocate
How
or
do we make sure that we're
surrogate than
protecting
she
by
is.
burying our power lines? How do we make sure that we're protecting lakefronts and things that we're seeing more and more of? But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to
Here's the thing.
Mar-a-Lago.
The problem is that it literally, all the things that are climate solutions, according to the left, literally are making it worse. They know that solar farms and wind farms create microclimates and all this other weirdo nonsense. So it's worse for the environment. It's not recyclable. All of the things.
Senator Vance, your campaign is pledging to carry out the largest mass deportation plan in American history
Good.
and to use the U.S. military to do so.
Good.
Could you be more specific about exactly how this will work? For example, would you
my
deport parents
popcorn?
who have entered the U.S. illegally and separate them from any of their children who were born on U.S. soil? You have 2 minutes.
So first of all, Margaret, before we talk about deportations, we have to stop the bleeding. We have a historic immigration crisis because Kamala Harris started and said that she wanted to undo all of Donald Trump's border policies. 94 executive orders suspending deportations, decriminalizing illegal aliens, massively increasing the asylum fraud that exists in our system. That has opened the floodgates. And what it's meant is that a lot of fentanyl is coming into our country. I had a mother who struggled with opioid addiction and has gotten clean. I don't want people who are struggling with addiction to be deprived of their second chance because Kamala Harris let in fentanyl into our communities at record levels. So you've got to stop the bleeding. You've got to re-implement Donald Trump's border policies, build the wall, re-implement deportations. And that gets me to your point, Margaret, about what do we actually do? So we've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work. And the final point, Margaret, is you ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. And I'd ask my fellow Americans to remember when she came into office, she said she was going to do this. Real leadership would be saying, you know what, I screwed up. We're going to go back to Donald Trump's border policies. I wish that she would do that. It would be good for all of us.
Ooh.
Governor,
I like it.
do you care to respond to any of those specific allegations, including that the vice president is, quote, letting in fentanyl and using kids as drug mules, among other things regarding children?
The drug mule is not true, but I will say about this, about the fentanyl, because this is
no.
the crisis of this, the
do you
opioid
know that?
crisis. And the good news on this is the last 12 months saw the largest decrease in opioid deaths in our nation's history. 30% decrease in Ohio, but there's still more work to do.
After
But let's
a
go back to
wild
this on
spike.
immigration. Kamala Harris was the Attorney General of the largest state and a border state in California. She's the only person in this race who prosecuted transnational gangs for human trafficking and
Nobody
drug
cares.
interventions. But look,
She did her
we all
job.
want to
Great.
solve this. Most of us want to solve this. And that
If she
is the
did
United
that,
States Congress.
if she did
That's the
that,
Border
then she
Patrol.
should know how
That's the
sick
Chamber
and
of Commerce.
twisted these
That's
people
most
are,
Americans out here.
and she
That's
shouldn't
why
be
we have
tolerating
the
them
fairest
setting
and
up
the toughest
gang headquarters in cities like Denver or Aurora, Colorado, and New York City, Chicago.
He's super conservative, but he's a man of principle, wants to get it done. Democrats and Republicans worked on this piece of legislation. The Border Patrol said, this is what we need in here. These are the experts. And the Chamber of Commerce
You're
and the
gonna
Wall Street
lie
Journal
about
said,
the
pass this
bill
thing.
again?
Kamala Harris helped get
Bro.
that. 1,500 new
Let's pull the
border
bill up
agents.
again.
Bro.
Detection for drugs. DOJ
Bro.
money to speed up these the adjudications on this, just what America wants. But as soon as I was getting ready to pass and actually tackle this, Donald Trump said no, told them to vote against it
Please
because
jam
it
him
gives him a campaign issue. It gives him to, what would
cannot
Donald
wait
Trump
for
talk
J.D.
about if we
Vance to
actually
answer.
did some of these things? And they need to be done by
So
the
he's that
legislature.
powerful,
You can't just
all of
do
a sudden.
this through the executive branch.
He wasn't that
So
powerful
look,
when he was
we had
president.
the options to do this. Donald Trump had 4 years. He had 4 years to do this. And he promised you, America, how easy it would be. I'll build
J.D.
you a
Vance
big,
is definite-
beautiful
is more
wall, and
presidential
Mexico will
looking.
pay for it. Less than 2% of that wall got built,
Please,
and Mexico
J.D.
didn't pay a dime. But here we are again, 9 years after he came down that escalator, dehumanizing people and telling them what he was going to do. As far as the deportation plan, at one point, Senator Vance said it was so unworkable to be laughable. So that's where we're at. Pass the bill, she'll sign it.
Governor, your time is up. Senator, the
Response?
question was, will you separate parents from their children, even if their kids are U.S. citizens?
They
You have
should
1
be
minute.
they should
Margaret,
be
my point
sent
is
back
that we
with their
already have
parents.
massive child separations thanks to Kamala Harris's open border. And I didn't accuse Kamala Harris of inviting drug mules. I said that she enabled the Mexican drug cartels to operate freely in this country. And
That's
we
right.
know that they use children
And
as
she
drug
did.
mules. And it is a disgrace. And it has to stop. Look, I think what Tim said just doesn't pass the smell test. For 3 years, Kamala Harris went out bragging that she was going to undo Donald Trump's border policy.
Yep.
She did exactly that.
And the
We had a
cartels
record number
responded.
of illegal crossings. We had a record number of fentanyl coming into our country. And now that she's running for president,
Numbers
or a
don't
few
lie,
months
y'all.
before, she says that somehow she got
Numbers
religion
don't lie.
and cared a lot
Statistics
about a
might,
piece
but
of
numbers don't.
legislation. The only thing that she did when she became the vice president, when she became the appointed border czar, was to undo 94 Donald Trump executive actions that opened the border. This problem is
Yep.
leading to massive problems in the United States of
Ladies
America.
and gentlemen.
Parents
Facts.
who can't afford
Facts.
health care,
Even in
schools that
Texas.
are overwhelmed. It's got to stop, and it will when Donald Trump is president again.
Senator, your time is up.
Turn it
Governor,
down. Pause it for a second.
Also,
What
like
about-
real talk,
No,
you know
pause
what?
it for a second. No, when he said this. Again, funding breakdown, 118.3 billion, 60 billion military aid for Ukraine, 14.1 billion Israel, 4.8 billion Indo-Pacific region, $10 billion humanitarian assistance to Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, and other places.
Doesn't sound like a border bill to me.
2.3 in refugee assistance inside U.S., 20.2 billion for improvements to U.S. border security.
So yeah, didn't we figure it was like 10%, 12%
Correct.
of the bill or something like that?
Correct.
Was
Tim
actually
Walz is a
for the
liar.
border. The rest of it is for
he's a
another
liar.
country.
He's a liar, and I just watched him lie on television. He's a dirtbag now.
Lie.
It's not a border bill.
It's not a
He
border
knows
bill.
it's not a border bill.
Not a border bill.
This, but by standing with Donald Trump and not working together to find a solution, it becomes a talking point. And when it becomes a talking point like this, we dehumanize and villainize other
God,
human
here we
beings.
go.
I don't care about
Governor,
villainizing
your
people.
time is
I'm
up.
gonna
Senator, I'll
villainize
give you 1
everybody
minute, but
after
let me
I go
just
get my Dairy Queen.
ask you the question first. The governor has made the point, and I think as a sitting lawmaker, you know that Congress controls the purse strings and any funding. So you have said repeatedly that Donald Trump would, through executive action, solve this. Do you disagree that Congress controls the purse strings and would need to support many of the changes that you would actually want to
Eventually,
implement?
if
You
they
have 1
want to do
minute.
their job.
Margaret, first of all, the gross majority of what we need to do at the southern border is just empowering law enforcement to do their job. I've been to the southern border more than our borders are. Kamala Harris has been. And it's actually heartbreaking because the Border Patrol agents, they just want to be empowered to do their job. Of course, additional resources would help, but most of this is about the president and the vice president empowering our law enforcement to say,
They already have laws for this.
legally, you've got to stay in Mexico. You've got to go back through proper channels. Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You have got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with America.
That's
He
right.
keeps talking about vilifying other people. Listen, how about we uplift Americans? That's a way you can look at it. It's not about vilifying people. It's about we are America first. I don't know
Bigot.
what to. I'm
Bigot.
sorry.
Why are you such a bigot?
Like, it's not our job to open borders wide open for people to do whatever they want. That's not what a country is,
Why aren't you for open borders, you bigot?
because it's ridiculous.
We need to do this. Look, this issue of continuing to bring this up, of not dealing with it, of blaming migrants for everything. On housing, we could talk a little bit about Wall Street speculators
On
buying up housing and
housing,
making
let's
them
talk
less
about them
affordable.
taking
But it
over
becomes a
apartment
blame.
buildings in
Look,
cities.
this bill also gives
Terrorizing
the money
people.
necessary
Yeah.
to adjudicate. I agree. It should not take 7
If I'm going to get oppressed, I'd rather be by Americans.
Yeah,
I don't
how
want
about all
foreign
the
people.
asylum
I don't want
fraudsters?
foreign people showing up and oppressing me. I want to fight somebody for my rights in America. It should be Americans. I expect companies, I expect the government to do nonsense. I don't want to have to also compete with national, multi, or international cartels and their proxies.
Yeah, get
That's
out of
wild.
here. Get out of here.
That's wild. That's y'all's literal job
Democrats
to
used to
protect
know
me
that.
from enemies, foreign first and domestic.
Have a large number of Haitian migrants
here we go.
who have legal
Here we
status,
go.
temporary protected
Well,
status. Nora?
Margaret, but
Thank you.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret,
Thank you,
I think it's
Nora.
important
We're
because
gonna turn now to the
debate-
economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that
The
you guys
economy,
weren't going to
we're-
fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think
Ooh,
it's important
go
to
for
say
it.
what's actually going
Get
on.
'em!
So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can
Smash
go on
on
as
them.
an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border
Look
wand.
at
That is not a
his
person
face.
coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years.
And you're
That is
trying
the
to cheat.
facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
Thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the
And
legal
Kamala-
process. We
and
have
Kamala
so much
Harris
to get
opened
to,
Wow,
that
bro.
Senator.
Those
We have
laws
so
have been on
much-
the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The
We
CBP
want to
One
have,
app has not been on the books since 1990.
They're muting the microphones.
gentlemen,
Oh, so you guys are breaking the
audience
rules
can't hear you
again.
because your mics are cut. We have so much we want to get to. Thank you for explaining the legal process. Nora?
Thank you, Margaret.
They're fact checking.
The economy is a top
fact-checking.
concern for voters. Each
I
of
love
your
it.
campaigns
I love how
has
he just
released an
called them out
economic
for that.
plan. So let's talk
Keep
about
calling
the
them out.
specifics. Governor Walz, Vice President Harris unveiled a plan that includes billions in tax credits for manufacturing, housing, and a renewed child tax credit. The Wharton School says your proposals will increase the nation's deficit by $1.2 trillion. How would you pay for that without ballooning the deficit? Governor, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. And Kamala Harris and I do believe in the middle class because that's where we come from. We
It's not the
both grew up
question.
in that. We understand. So those
Okay.
of you out there listening tonight, you're
'Cause she
hearing a
grew
lot of
up
stuff
and
back
she
and
had
forth,
a
and it's
other
good.
mom.
It's healthy. That's what this is supposed to happen.
She grew up in the
you
middle
should be
class.
listening how
She
this is going
respects
to
them.
impact me. The bold forward plan that Kamala Harris put out there is talking about this housing issue. The one thing is there's 3 million new houses proposed under this plan with down payment assistance on the front end to get you in a house. A house is much more than just an asset to be traded somewhere. It's foundational to where you're at. And then making sure
so
that
you're
the
gonna
things you buy
increase
every day,
demand,
whether they be prescription
making the
drugs
prices
or
go
other
up.
things, that there's fairness in that. Look,
When
the
there's
$35
already a supply
insulin is a
issue,
good thing,
you
but it
moron.
costs $5 to make insulin. They were charging $800 before this law went into effect. As
No, they
far as the
weren't.
housing goes, I've seen it in Minnesota.
We're gonna fact
12%
check
more
that?
houses in Minneapolis. Prices went down on rent 4%. It's working. And then
You mean
making
the
sure
law
tax cuts go to
on
the
insulin that the Trump administration put into place that the Biden administration undid so that they could redo?
long run, and we do the right thing for families.
Yeah.
And then getting businesses off the ground.
Where's the
The
fact
law as
check?
it stands right now is
CBS loses.
$5,000 tax credit for small
Wow.
business, increasing that to $50,000. Now, this is a philosophical difference between us. Donald Trump made a promise, and I'll give you this. He kept it. He took folks to Mar-a-Lago, said, you're rich as hell, I'm going to give you a tax cut. He gave the tax cuts that predominantly went to the top class. What happened there was an $8 trillion increase in the national debt, the largest ever. Now he's proposing a 20% consumption or sales tax on everything we bring in. Everyone agrees, including businesses, it would be destabilizing it. It would increase inflation and potentially lead
talking
to
about
a recession. Look, this is simple for you. Where are we going? Kamala Harris has said to do the things she wants to do. We'll just ask the wealthiest to pay their fair share. When you do that, our system works best. More people are
my God.
participating in it,
Fair
and folks
share.
have the
Wait.
things that they need.
Senator,
Wait.
Taxation
Wait.
is theft. Saying that they should steal from more people is not good.
raise the nation's deficit by $5.8 trillion. My question is the same for you. How do you pay for all that without ballooning the deficit? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, you're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer, a lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do. And some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good. Here's what you won't hear, is that Kamala Harris has already done it. Because she's been the vice president for 3.5 years. She had the opportunity to enact all of these great policies. And what she's actually done instead is drive the cost of food higher by 25%, drive the cost of housing higher by about 60%. Open the American southern border and make middle-class life unaffordable for a large number of Americans. If Kamala Harris
Everybody's
has
saying
such
it.
great plans for how to address middle-class problems, then she ought to do them now.
No.
Not when asking for a promotion, but in the job the American people gave her 3.5 years
That's
ago.
right.
And the fact that she
You have the-
isn't
you have the
tells you
ability
a
to
lot
do it
about
now.
how much you can
Unless you're
trust
saying there's something
her
wrong with
actual
Joe Biden.
plans. Now, Donald Trump's economic plan
Yeah.
is not just a plan, but it's also a record. A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom. Because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world. So when people say that Donald
Yeah,
Trump's
we don't
economic
got
plan doesn't
any
make
peace or
sense,
security right
I
now.
say look at the record. He delivered rising take-home pay for American workers. Now, Tim admirably admits that they want to undo the Trump tax cuts. But if you look at what was so different about Donald Trump's tax cuts, even from previous Republican tax cut plans, is that a lot of those resources went to giving more take-home pay to middle-class
That's right.
and working-class Americans.
Oh, I
it
think
was
it was like
passed in 2017.
$4,300
and you saw an
increase
American economic boom unlike we've
in
seen
the average
in a
pay
generation in this
per
country.
year.
That is a record that I'm proud to run on, and we're going to get back to that common sense wisdom so that you can afford to live the American dream again. I know a lot of you are struggling. I know a lot of you are worried about paying the bills.
He's
It's
doing
going
a
to stop when Donald Trump
terrible job
brings back common
his
sense to this
face.
country.
Governor, do you want to respond to that? What has Kamala Harris done for the middle class?
Somebody
Kamala
needed
Harris's
to
day
coach
one
him on
was
his freaking
Donald Trump's
face.
failure on
It's freaking
COVID that led to the
terrifying.
collapse of our
Wait,
economy.
wait.
We were
His
already
failure on
before
COVID.
in a manufacturing recession, but 10 million people out of work, largest percentage since the Great Depression.
COVID.
9 million jobs closed on that. That was day one. Whether it was the Infrastructure Act or other things we moved. Now, you made a question about experts, said this. I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president,
Partisan
you don't have all the
hacks
answers. Donald
can't
Trump
be
believes he
trusted.
does. My pro tip of the day is
CBS
this.
can't be
If
trusted.
you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump. And the same thing goes with this. And I ask you out there, teachers, nurses, truck drivers, or whatever, how is it fair that you're paying your taxes every year and Donald Trump hasn't paid any federal tax in the last 15 years?
That's-
in the last year as
that's-
president.
that's
That's
not
what's
even
wrong with the
accurate.
system. There's a way around
His
it.
last
and he's
year as
bragged
president, he
about
didn't
that.
make any
We're
money.
just asking for fairness in it, and that's
He
all
didn't have any
want.
earned income.
Wait, wait.
You have a minute.
Wait.
Governor, you say trust the experts.
Here we
but
go.
Those same experts
Cook.
for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. And for the first time in a generation, Donald Trump had the wisdom and the courage to say to that bipartisan consensus, we're not doing it anymore. We're bringing American manufacturing back. We're unleashing American energy.
That's because
We're gonna
Tim
make
Walz
more
is
of
an
our own
elite.
stuff. And this isn't just an economic
He
issue.
follows
And I've got
the
3 beautiful
tune of the
little kids at
elites.
home, 7, 4, and 2, and I love them very much, and I hope they're in bed right now. But look, so many of the drugs, the pharmaceuticals that we put in the bodies of our children are manufactured by nations that hate us. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is
My
what Donald Trump
economics
governed on.
teacher
Senator,
Yeah,
told
we were
me.
just talking about that.
Hold on. My economics teacher told me that it made sense for us to have a trade deficit with China, I believe, when I was in high school. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't we want to be the one that are owed the money? And he was like, oh, it's good for trade. It's an elite. And it didn't click. It didn't make any sense. But also, the experts also said that the effing laptop was fake, right?
Oh yeah, the Hunter
it was
Biden.
fake.
It was a Russian disinformation.
The feds, 51 people, blah, blah, blah. The top intel experts. This dude is a clown. Tim Walz has just proven to me, I don't know much about him. I knew he was a coach. He's a clown.
These people count on everyone not knowing anything. They count on people not following the news, not keeping up with things, and just being scrolling
experts.
the headlines.
You mean Fauci? Remember what happened when he trusted Fauci?
Yeah, why do your own thinking, dude? Wait, what was that quote from that stupid
Trust the
YouTube?
science.
Dude, like why do your own research, dude? Yeah, bro. Unbelievable.
Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens. I was raised by a woman who would sometimes go into medical debt so that she could put food on the table in our household. I know what it's like to not be able to afford the things that you need to afford. We can do so much
Give us your folksy
better.
home
All of
story,
you
Tim.
watching,
See, this is the government. He's cooking this boy. He's cooking this boy. They had to put a commercial.
I'm gonna have to pay for YouTube Premium.
Apparently.
The Biden administration
come on,
finally agreed
dude.
to
Dang it,
ban
Grant.
Peter Daszak
Come on, bro.
Mental Health Alliance.
The last voice the president hears before making consequential decisions. We want to ask you about your leadership qualities. Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400. Town that you
don't
rode your
care
bike with your
where
buddies till
you're
the street
from.
lights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel
My
to China.
chest hurts
35 years
listening to
ago,
this man
be able
talk.
to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams,
What
we
is
would
this
take
about?
dancers, and we would
I
go
don't even
back
hear
and
the
forth to
question. Who
China.
cares?
The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am. They saw where I was at. Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community.
What
I've
is
tried
this?
to do
Not
the
a-
best I can.
What?
But I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times. But it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years. And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people.
Were
Okay,
you in
wait,
Tiananmen
bro.
Square when you
Bills that we got
said,
done,
Oh.
working on veterans benefits? And then the people of Minnesota
He's about to get
were able
cooked.
to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning to
Wait
make
a
sure that I'm
second.
there.
Did I
for the
hear
chest,
about this?
to
Wait
make
a
sure that
second.
I
Wait,
get
did
this
I hear
right. I
about
will
this?
say more than anything.
Wait,
Many times
I thought I heard something. Did he say he
You
was
need to
at
let-
Tiananmen Square?
yes, keep running.
he
You
wasn't?
gotta- no, let the
impact it made, the difference it made in my life. I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be
He was
What?
praising Xi
What?
Jinping about COVID. And I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing. So this is
What,
about
bro?
We are
trying to
losing the
understand
trade
the
war
What
right
is this
now.
man
trying
talking
to
about?
Do the best you can for your community.
What
And
is
then
this
it's
man
putting yourself
talking about?
out there and letting your folks understand
He-
what it is.
I
My
have
commitment,
never
whether it
se-
be through
hold on.
teaching, which I was good at.
This,
or whether-
I've never seen someone dodge an answer to a question this hard in my whole life.
Follow up on that. The question was, can you explain the
No,
discrepancy?
just all I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protest.
Wait, Hong Kong?
And from that,
Wait.
I learned a lot
Wait,
what needed to be in
Wait.
governance.
Wait,
did you hear what he just said?
you said I was in Hong Kong and
Senator
China.
Vance, in 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office, and you said he could be America's Hitler. I know you've been asked many times, and you've said you regret those comments and explained you then voted for Donald Trump in 2020. But the Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism.
Okay.
He
You're
did.
now his running mate, and you've shifted many of your policy stances to align with
Because
his.
he sees what the alternative
If you
is.
become vice president, why should Americans trust that you will give Donald Trump the advice he needs to hear and not just the advice he wants to hear? You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, Margaret, because I've always been open. And sometimes, of course, I've disagreed with the president, but I've also been extremely open about the fact that I was wrong about Donald Trump. I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record. But most importantly, Donald Trump delivered for the American people. Rising wages, rising take-home pay, an economy that worked for normal Americans, a secure southern border, a lot of things, frankly, that I didn't think he'd be able to deliver on. And yeah, when you screw up, when you misspeak, when you get something wrong and you change your mind, you ought to be honest with the American people about it. It's one of the reasons, Margaret, why I've done so many interviews is because I think it's important to actually explain to the American people where I come down on the issues and
Here
what
it comes.
changed. Now, you pointed out the messages from 2020. Margaret, I've been extremely consistent that I think there were a lot of things that we could have done better in the Trump administration the first round if Congress was doing its job. I strongly believe, and I've been a United States Senator, that Congress is not just a high-class debating society. It's not just a forum for senators and congressmen to whine about problems. It's a forum to govern. So there were a lot of things on the border, on tariffs, for example, where I think that we could have done so much more if the Republican Congress and the Democrats in Congress had been a little bit better about how they govern the country. They were so obsessed with impeaching Donald Trump, they couldn't actually govern. And I want to talk about this tariff issue in particular, Margaret, because Tim just accused this of being a national sales tax. Look,
on,
the
Skip?
one thing, and you're not
going,
probably
Creaky Moose.
surprised to hear me praising Joe Biden, but the one thing that Joe
Edgar
Biden did
C96,
is
see
he
you.
continued
Aaron
some of the
Hutchins.
Trump tariffs that protected American manufacturing jobs. And it's the one issue, the most pro-worker part of the Biden administration, it's the one issue where Kamala Harris has run away from Joe Biden's record. Think about this. If you're trying to employ slave laborers in China at $3 a day, you're going to do that and undercut the wages of American workers unless our country stands up for itself and says, you're not accessing our markets unless you're paying middle-class Americans a fair wage.
Senator, your time is up.
Trump chose
Nora?
JD
Thank you.
What's up with your volume?
Issue of reproductive
Your volume's
rights.
low.
Governor Walz,
That's why
after Roe
JD
versus
Vance
Wade
was chosen
over-
to be VP.
Yo, he just said that Kamala wants to employ slave labor.
That was so good.
abortion. Former President Trump said in the last debate that you believe abortion, quote, in the 9th month is absolutely fine. Yes or no? Is that what you support? I'll give you 2 minutes.
That's not what the bill says, but look, this issue is what's on everyone's mind. Donald Trump put this all into motion. He brags about how great it was that he put the judges in and overturned Roe versus Wade, 52 years of personal autonomy. And then he tells us, oh, we send it to the states. It's a beautiful thing. Amanda Zaworski would disagree with you on it's a beautiful thing. A young bride in Texas waiting for their child at 18 weeks. She has a complication, a tear in the membrane. She needs to go in. The medical care at that point needs to be decided by the doctor. And that would have been an abortion. But in Texas, that would have put them in legal jeopardy. She went home, got sepsis, nearly dies, and now she may have difficulty having children. Or in Kentucky, Hadley Duvall, a 12-year-old child raped and impregnated by her stepfather.
It's rough.
Those are horrific. Now, when God asked about that, Senator Vance said 2 wrongs don't make a right. There is no right in this. So in Minnesota, what we did was restore Roe versus Wade. We made sure that we put women in charge of their health care. But look, this is not where, if you don't know Amanda or a Hadley,
babies is it?
you soon will. Their Project 2025 is going to have a registry of pregnancies. It's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible.
Their Project 2025.
And limit access, if not
Come on, man.
eliminate.
Just tell the
access
truth.
to
Yo,
infertility
for
treatment.
real though, if
For so
Project
many of you out there listening,
2025
me
says
included,
there's going to be a
Project
registry of
2025
births,
is a child.
first of all, I'm not. Look. Here's real talk. I have not read it. I don't know what it says. I don't care what it says. But there's already a registry of birth. That's why you have a social security number and a birth certificate.
Mortality
I don't know.
in Texas, outpacing many other countries in the world. This is about.
It's been debunked that that's not Trump's plan. That's somebody else's idea from a think tank. You got to at least be honest about it, bro.
Create a federal pregnancy monitoring agency?
No, Nora, certainly we won't. And I want to talk about this issue because I know a lot of Americans care about it, and I know a lot of Americans don't agree with everything that I've ever said on this topic. And, you know, I grew up in a working class family in a neighborhood where I knew a lot of young women who had unplanned pregnancies and decided to terminate those pregnancies because they feel like they didn't have any other options. About guns. And, you know, one of them is actually very dear to me. And I know she's watching tonight, and I love you. And she told me something a couple years ago that she felt like if she hadn't had that abortion, that it would have destroyed her life because she was in an abusive relationship. And I think that what I take from that as a Republican who proudly wants to protect innocent life in this country, who proudly wants to protect the vulnerable, is that my party, we've got to do so much better of a job at earning the American people's trust back on this issue where they frankly just don't trust us. And I think that's one of the things that Donald Trump and I are endeavoring to do. I want us as a Republican Party to be pro-family in the fullest sense of the word. I want us to support fertility treatments.
just
I
got
want us to make it
emotional.
easier
You can
for
see,
moms
look at his
to
eyes.
afford to have babies. I want it to make it easier for young families
did that
to
on
afford a
purpose or
home
not,
so they can
but
afford a
he
place
just got
to
emotional.
raise that family. And I think there's so
Look
much
at
that
Tim
we can
Walt's
do
face.
on the public policy front just to give women more options.
It's like Joe
of course,
Biden
Donald Trump has been
was
very
looking
clear
at
that on the
Donald Trump
abortion
during their
policy
debate.
specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse. And California has a different viewpoint on this than Georgia. Georgia has a different viewpoint from Arizona. And the proper way to handle this, as messy as democracy sometimes is to let voters make these decisions, let the individual states make their abortion policy. And I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse, and let's be honest, sometimes a very, very messy and divided country.
Governor, would you like to respond and also answer the question about restrictions?
Weird.
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights as basic as the right to control your own body is
Oh, you
determined
mean like
on geography.
Wait,
from
There's
taking a
a very
vaccine?
real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota,
you mean like vaccines, or all those people who came to the border because you guys opened it up, and the many women who got raped and attacked and assaulted on that trip that we know happens because of the way it works with the cartels and the trafficking. You guys were complicit in that.
Also,
ask-
there was somebody who they were reporting as being an abortion death, and it wasn't really an abortion death. She was pregnant with twins. They gave her abortion pills like way too late in the pregnancy. The babies died, but they weren't delivered like they're supposed to be when you take an abortion pill. So she got sepsis. And that's what happened. And that would have happened no matter where. It was not an abortion death. Okay? She would not have been prevented from getting care. It's a sick lie.
Referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making child care more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that.
Liar.
Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things, to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro.
Your team definitely celebrates abortions. Like it's a whole thing. We've seen people talk about that.
They literally
and
celebrate your abortion.
Yeah, and we're in a place, you're muted, and we're in a place where we're not meeting the replacement birth rates. We don't have enough black people. Like, we all know that. That's a real thing.
I want to hear the rebuttal.
You signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late-term abortion. That is, I think, whether you're pro-choice or pro-abortion, that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written.
You didn't say that with the jab.
That's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me. What was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given this.
But how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged. That's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved.
You mean when you guys cheated with the fact checks at the last debate?
Things worked
amazing
best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration,
he just referenced them cheating in the last debate.
Wow, bro.
He doesn't know he did that.
When they fact checked in the last debate, what a little bitch.
We broke the
education.
What a little bitch. Oh,
so hiding.
Oh,
behind,
you
"We're gonna
can't
do all these
debate
other
unless
things,"
you have
when
the
you're not proposing them in your
women
budget. Kamala
up
Harris is
there
proposing them. She's proposing all those things to
defending
make
you.
life easier for families.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true.
Ooh,
That's not what the
slogan
law
face.
says. So they fact checked it with President
Where?
Trump.
Gentlemen,
Again,
there's
you
a lot
admitted to
discuss.
cheating.
We have to move on, and we're going to be right back
Wow,
with much
bro.
more of the CBS News
He
Vice
admitted to
Presidential
cheating.
debate in just a moment.
Hold on. You should put the captions on. But I just want to highlight when they fact checked Trump in the last debate, it was against the rules what they were doing. They violated the rules of the debate. Tim Walz,
Captions unavailable.
he's using the fact that they cheated in the last debate as why he's right in this debate.
That is like, wow, bro. That is
This is a cornball.
that is something else.
This dude is
That
a
is something else.
cornball.
All right, if you guys are watching, put a comment, put something in the comments. Let us know what you think.
Where you at?
What state are you watching from?
We're in Texas.
If Ray Ingram is out there watching us, you got to call me, bro.
Yeah.
We're
Look.
thinking about buying a house. You should
Check
come to
this out.
Texas and come fix
I
it up
want
for us.
to I want to hear what they got to say about the Second Amendment. I know Kamala's a gun grabber.
Oh, she's coming for your gun.
She's into using
She
government
wants to
force.
come
She's
and
into
get
using
your
government.
guns.
Huh?
Oh, what's that?
She's into using government force and firearms to take your firearms.
Yeah, hang on.
We know
Play some
that.
background
A
music.
corpse and hiding a
You
corpse.
gotta turn that down, baby.
I can't.
Wow.
Can I? Can I turn? Oh, here we go. Wait. Okay, how about that? Now it's
Yeah,
like
that's fine.
background noise, right?
Sure. Yeah, so this has been interesting. I mean, Tim Walz is better than Kamala Harris and Joe Biden at explaining his points.
But you notice, like, bro, we're gonna have to get a side by side of Joe Biden and Tim Walz making the same like terrified face.
Oh, these dudes are wiling with these faces.
Hold on, hold on. You talk to the people while I go look for something.
Well, the point I was trying to make is that he is better than Kamala Harris has been. on these topics.
He is. He's doing a
He
better job
answers
of
these
articulating
questions
it.
in a much better way than she typically does. So I will give him credit for that. I will give him credit for that. Now I'm not going to give him credit for this face. I'm not going to give him credit for that. That's
Yeah.
a terrible face. He should stop. He should stop making that face.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not good.
But he was doing a pretty decent job. You know, Vance is doing a good job. He's cooking.
Yeah.
Only because I know what they're lying about in some of these areas. I think Vance is doing a slightly better job. He's giving better answers. He's dodged less questions. Tim has dodged more questions. Boy is slipping. And
So check this out. Hold on.
What's
You
up?
ready?
yeah.
Okay, wait, hang on. Let's see. You can't touch me. I cannot be stopped. I cannot be stopped. Of course.
You cannot touch me.
Little jank action in there. Of course.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to show the world. Oh, hold on. Okay, wait. Can I make it bigger? Okay, hang on.
Yeah. But yeah, that's my analysis so far. I
right.
mean, it's close, but it's not close if you know.
All right. Okay, so here we go. Here's Joe Biden's like terrified, confused face, right? Right from the debate. I don't like it. And look it.
It's
There's
not
Tim
Tim Walz's
Walz.
worst face though.
Huh?
It's not the worst one. The one I had was I gotta do it.
Oh, you gotta do it. You
I
do
gotta
it.
show you.
You do it. Okay, you do it. Okay, you guys.
The point is,
guys, put something in the chat. Let us know what you think. Who's doing a better job?
who's winning?
Who's winning? Who's winning the debate right now? I think it's JD Vance. I mean, this man is very articulate. For those of you who may not know, he is a lawyer, right, by trade. So he went to law school, and he is a writer, and he wrote a book, a best-selling book that got turned into a screenplay and then a movie, Hillbilly Elegy, and it's about basically the plight of Appalachia, or essentially these formerly industrial, blue collar, typically white areas that have become just overrun with drugs and poverty because all of our manufacturing jobs got shipped overseas. Being from Vermont, I saw the same thing. Right, the same thing happened in Vermont. We had tons of manufacturing, tons of agriculture. All of that stuff got shipped overseas because of environmental issues, and we can't do those things here anymore. So you guys need to understand that a lot of our manufacturing and our industry, the reason the United States has gotten cleaner is because we have taken. Is that you, Benjamin?
Yep.
Don't let Trump cheat. What?
Demand voter ID, proof of citizenship, paper ballot, in-person voting, and same-day
That's
result.
hysterical. That is hysterical. What's that from?
If you're really afraid of Russia, all those things would stop
I'm
Russia
just
from
saying,
cheating.
Russia.
Just saying. Anyways,
What are
I'm
we
sorry,
doing?
continue.
Here's the question. What are we doing? What are we doing? Come at me. Come at me right now, bro. Okay, let's see if we're live again.
I want to see
All
this
right,
conversation.
we're back
right
live.
here. Right to bear arms.
Yeah. I'm into it.
Pablo Escobar. They back?
It's your
Oh, here
biggest
we go.
nightmare. Look, I got a
Here we go.
I got a
Here it is.
17-year-old, and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress,
And
I
you're safe
sat
sitting?
in my office,
safe.
surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We
More than one?
understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our
Hey, I'm here to tell you about a great event from the U.S. Concealed Carry Association.
Okay, I
We're
really
hosting a
didn't want to have to give
100%
the
free
evil
self-defense workshop in
evil
your
Google.
city.
Skip this.
It's called
I can't
Should I
skip
Shoot?
it.
It says
been
skip
done
in
on
the
gun
corner.
violence. And this idea that we should just live with it, here's what I do think, that this is a good start to the conversation. I 100% believe that Senator Vance hates it when these kids, it's abhorrent and it breaks your heart. I agree with that. But that's not far enough when we know there are things that worked. I've spent time in Finland and seen some Finnish schools. They
We're not
don't
Finnish.
have this happen, even though they have a high gun ownership rate in the country. There are reasonable things that we can do to make a difference. It's not infringing on your.
How many people get killed in Finland from hand-to-hand combat? And how many immigrants and people from random countries with random cultures do they have in Finland? Or is it a bunch of white people?
Do you want your schools hardened to look like a fort?
Yes.
Is that what we have to go when we know
Yep.
there's countries around the world that their children aren't practicing these types of drills?
Great.
They're being kids. We owe it to them to get a fix.
Yeah,
These
their
are
kids
things
are
that
also
shouldn't be
getting
that
a
difficult.
good
You can still
education
keep your
and
firearms,
not
we
being
can make-
not having pornographic books put in their schools and being confused and
Hold on.
told
I
how
wanna
to
hear this
trans
one.
themselves and
I wanna hear this
freaking
one.
can't read.
It is awful. And I appreciate what Tim said actually about Finland, because I do think it illustrates some of the frankly weird differences between our own country's gun violence problem and Finland. Is okay, first of all, we have way higher rates of mental health abuse or mental health substance abuse. We have way higher rates of depression, way higher rates of anxiety. We unfortunately have a mental health crisis in this country that I really do think that we need to get to the root causes of, because I don't think it's the whole reason
Yes.
why we have such a bad gun violence problem, but I do think it's a big
Violence
piece of it.
problem.
Another driver of the gun violence epidemic, especially that affecting our kids, it doesn't earn as many headlines, but is the terrible gun violence problem in a lot of our big cities. And this is why we have to empower law enforcement to arrest the bad guys, put them away, and take gun offenders off the streets. I think there's a whole host of things that we can do here, but I do think at our schools we've got to talk about more security.
Senator, thank you. Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban. but
You've,
his
no,
political
what
career.
just
Did
happened?
you change your position? Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to
became
teach gun
friends with
safety.
school shooters.
I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today. And several things I want to mention on this is talking about cities and where it's at. The number one where the most firearm deaths happen in Minnesota are rural suicides. And we have an epidemic of children getting guns and shooting themselves. And so we have, and we should look at all of the issues. Making sure folks have health care and all that, but I want to be very careful. This idea of stigmatizing mental health, just because you have...
You are going to attack pistols. If you're talking about saving any and all gun deaths, there's no way to dance around the fact that you will come for people's pistols. And the fact that Kamala Harris's position says that she's willing to use the government to force mandatory
Buybacks.
takings of your firearms. I mean, she's willing to use guns to take your guns from you.
Yep.
And moreover, when you're talking about it's about the children, great. So who do you think we're protecting at home with the guns?
Yeah, the 1.5, the estimated 1.5 million self-defensive uses of the firearms every year.
Your family and your children. So great, you take them and nobody has them. The criminals that you let across the border still have them. So again, until you fix the border, this isn't a conversation you can even have. You're just going to have gun runners. And the criminals are still going to have guns.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what you do. We have violence here. You have to fix that.
Handing out that kind of money.
Oh,
just
here we
drive
go.
up
This is
prices
stupid.
higher.
No, it's not handing out. We have, first, let me say this issue of housing, and I think those of you listening on this, the problem we've had is housing as another commodity. It can be bought up, it can be shifted, it can be moved around. Those are not folks living in those houses. Those of you listening tonight, that house is a big deal. I bought and owned one house in my life. My mom still lives in the house where I was. And when I think of a house, I'm thinking of Christmas services after midnight mass where you go with your family. We need to make it more affordable. And one of the things, as I said, this program that the vice president is
make it more affordable?
pushing forward.
You can just
and
make
bringing a new way of
affordable
approaching
houses.
this is something we're doing in
You
Minnesota.
don't need
from
4
that
bedrooms.
lead.
Hold
We
on.
in the state invested in making sure our housing was the best.
Why do the houses cost so much? You don't need 1,900 square feet to have a house. You could live in a studio. You could live in a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom house. People don't want that. People want these 2, 3, 4-bedroom houses, often for the sake of building wealth and flipping. I'm sorry. You could fix it. People aren't really wanting cheaper houses. Not really. Not the ones I've seen.
Long run, the appreciated value, the generational wealth that's created from it. And I will give Minneapolis an example. Minneapolis is the one city where we've seen the lowest inflation rates. We've seen a 12% increase in stock because we've put some of these things in. And we're implementing a state program to make sure we give some of that down payment assistance. We get it back from people because here's what we know. People with stable housing end up with stable jobs. People with stable housing have their kids able to be able to get to school. All of those things in the long run end up saving our money. And that's the thing that I think we should be able to find some common ground in, but we can't blame immigrants for the only reason. That's not the case that's happening in many cities. The fact of the matter is that we don't have enough naturally affordable housing, but we can make sure that
What
the
does that
government's
have
there
to do
help
with immigrants?
kickstart it,
Aside
create
from the
that-
fact that you're
create that,
creating
base.
like
Governor, your
shelters and
time
a
is
bunch
up.
of
Senator
nonsense.
Vance, as far as
Driving
your
homeless
campaign's
people out.
position, the
Maybe we
promise is
missed
to
that.
seize federal lands to build homes, remove regulation, provide tax breaks, and cut back on immigration, which you say pushes up prices. Where are you going to build all the new homes you're promising, and what part of any of this plan will provide immediate relief. You
Places
have 2
that
minutes.
don't have enough people.
First of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim. 25 million illegal aliens competing with Americans for scarce homes is one of the most significant drivers of home prices
that's real
in the
talk.
country. It's why we have,
They have to live
massive
somewhere.
increases in home prices that have happened right alongside massive increases in illegal alien populations under Kamala Harris's leadership. Now, Tim just mentioned a bunch of ideas. Now, some of those ideas I actually think are halfway decent, and some of them I disagree with. But the most important thing here is Kamala Harris is not running as a newcomer to politics. She is the sitting vice president. If she wants to enact all of these policies to make housing more affordable, I invite her to use the office that the American people.
Wait, or she has to admit that there's a problem with Joe Biden. Either she should be doing, and she's being a loser, and she's politicizing these issues, or Joe Biden is not doing his job.
As Donald Trump says, drill, baby, drill. One of the biggest drivers of housing costs aside from illegal immigration is, think about it. If a truck driver's paying 40% more for diesel, then the lumber he's delivering to the job site to build the house is also going to become a lot more expensive. If we open up American energy, you will get immediate pricing relief for American citizens, not, by the way, just in housing, but in a whole host of other economic goods, too.
Wait, and a fun thing, if you wildly tax the companies delivering that stuff, or these organizations that they're saying need to pay more of their fair share, these large companies and corporations.
Wait, hold on. Unmute.
Oh, I thought you could do it.
Could be places where we build a lot of housing. And I do think that we should be opening up building in this country. We have a lot of land that could be used. We have a lot of Americans that need homes. We should be kicking out illegal immigrants who are competing for those homes, and we should be building more homes for the American citizens who deserve to be here.
Some part of the question
Senator, your
was
time
something
is
about
up.
seizing
Governor, I do want to let you
federal lands for
respond to
something.
the
Sorry,
allegation
I
that the vice
interrupted you.
president is letting in.
Well, of course, that's not
migrants,
true. And
and
again,
that
you
it's
have the
affecting
facts. I
housing
guess we
prices.
agreed not to fact check. I'll check it. That, look, crossings are down compared to when Donald Trump left office. But it's, again, blaming and not
That's
trying to
not-
find the solution.
Hold on. I guess we agreed not to fact check.
You just admitted that you guys cheated in this debate.
I guess we agreed not to fact check, so I'll do it. That's your job. It's a debate, bro.
Cornball.
What? Oh,
Cornball.
what? I'm sorry.
Cornball.
I thought you wanted the job that puts you a heartbeat away from the most powerful man on earth. And you can't be bothered to fact check, bro?
Unless these ladies save you.
Oh, wow.
That just proves that Waltz and Trump are tougher than Harris and this dude. And,
wow, bro.
You need the teacher on your
some of these
side.
houses, we're able to make
Wow.
some investments. That gets people in. And I'm still on the fact on this. Economists, Senator Vance, you said you don't like the economists. Which economists are saying that it is immigrants that's adding to the cost?
Governor,
Where's the
your
study?
time is
Common
your time is up,
25
but
million
Senator, on that
people.
point-
Where are they
No,
living?
Let me finish my sentence. Hiking up the price, taxing companies, whatever you're planning on doing, adding to the bottom line raises the cost of everything. So that's that. Having people who aren't supposed to be here getting homes to compete in the market with people like us raises the prices.
If there's already a shortage of homes.
In addition to the fact, if you're giving them money to buy those houses, that's our money that you're subsidizing them to compete with me for housing.
Wow.
That's not.
So now I'm competing against illegal immigrants with my own money.
Yeah. My legal tender.
I'm competing with people who are paying with my money.
Correct.
That's wow, bro.
Yeah.
And guess what? Even Bernie Sanders used to know that crap.
Way to millions upon millions of people who have no legal right to be here.
What are the federal regulations? I deal with this as a governor.
You can very quickly reply.
I'm sorry. I get this as a governor, and I don't necessarily disagree with that in some cases, many of those are local. Many of them are state. I don't know which ones are federal, but I think whenever we talk regulations, people think they can get rid of them. I think you want to be able to get out of your house in a fire. I think you want to make sure that it's fireproof and those types of things.
Sure.
So which are the regulations? Because the vice president's not
about
responsible
that.
for those. Congress writes those.
Governor, thank you. Gentlemen,
She's part of Congress.
we have
You
a
were
lot
too.
to get through. You're passionate
She was a
about the housing
senator.
crisis, I can tell.
She was a
But Nora?
senator.
Thank you. One of
And
the
he
top
wasn't
problems
he?
facing
I thought
Americans
he was.
is the high cost of health care. Senator Vance, at the last presidential debate,
Interesting.
former President Trump was asked about replacing the Affordable Care Act. In response, he said, I have concepts of a plan. Since then, Senator, you've talked about changing how chronically ill Americans get health insurance. Can you
Health care,
explain how
not
that
insurance.
would work?
He was a
And
congressman.
can you guarantee that Americans with pre-existing conditions won't pay more? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Well, of course,
In
we're going
insurance,
to
they
cover
should.
Americans with pre-existing conditions. In fact, a lot of my family members have gotten health care. I believe, members of my family actually got private health insurance, at least for the first time, switched off of Medicaid onto private insurance for the first time under Donald Trump's leadership. And I think that, a lot of people have criticized this concepts of a plan remark. Look, it's very simple common sense. I think it's Tim Walz knows from 12 years in Congress. You're not going to propose a 900-page bill standing on a debate stage. It would bore everybody to tears, and it wouldn't actually mean anything because part of this is the give and take of bipartisan negotiation. Now, when Donald Trump was actually president, and again, he has a record to be proud of, prescription drugs fell in 2018 for the first time in a very long time. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, prescription drugs are up about 7%. Under Donald Trump's entire 4 years, they were
wow.
up about 1.5%. He introduced pricing transparency. Think about healthcare. You go into a hospital, you try to buy something, and nobody knows what it actually
much it
costs.
costs.
That price transparency will actually give American consumers a little bit more
that actually
choice
was pretty
and
good.
will also drive down costs.
Business.
And we talked about,
Businessman.
the reinsurance regulations is what I was talking about. Look, Donald Trump has said that if we allow states to experiment a little bit on how to cover both the chronically ill but the non-chronically ill, it's not just a plan. He actually implemented some of these regulations when he was president of the United States. And I think you can make a really good argument that it salvaged Obamacare, which was doing disastrously until Donald Trump came along.
story.
And I think this is an important point about President Trump. Of course, you don't have to agree with everything that President Trump has ever said or ever done.
Yeah.
But when Obamacare was crushing under the weight of its own regulatory burden and healthcare costs, Donald Trump could have destroyed the
funding
program.
mechanisms you guys
Instead,
canceled.
he worked
Oh
in
yeah,
a
and don't
bipartisan
forget,
way.
you guys, and now they've defunded. Keep in mind, they have defunded Obamacare. So they nationalized. You guys hear me talk about this all the time. They nationalized the student loan industry to use the interest payments to pay for Obamacare subsidies. So now they've forgiven millions and millions of dollars in student loan debt, and now none of that interest is going to be coming in. But also, everybody's loans were in deferment for like 4 years during COVID. So that's another thing that contributed to the deficit.
Okay, let's see what his answer is.
Now, Donald Trump all of a sudden wants to go back and remember this. He ran on the first thing he was going to do on day one was to repeal Obamacare. On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill. Now,
Oh, you
fast
like
forward,
McCain,
what
the
that
war
means to
criminal.
you
Oh,
is
now he's-
you lose
now-
your
now that
pre-existing
he's
conditions.
dead, he's
If you're
their
sitting at
friend.
home and you got asthma, too bad. If you're a woman, probably not. Broke your foot during football, might kick you out. Your kids get kicked out when they're 26. Kamala Harris negotiated drug prices for the first time with Medicare. We have 10 drugs that will come online, the most common ones that'll be there. But look, this issue, and when Donald Trump said, I've got a concept of a plan, it cracked me up as a fourth grade teacher because my kids would have never given me that. But what Senator Vance just explained might be worse than a concept, because what he explained is pre-Obamacare. And I'll make this as simple as possible because I have done
I
this
had
for a long
insurance
time.
before Obamacare.
What they're saying
It was
is,
cheap.
if you're healthy, why should you be paying more? So what they're going to do
you
is let
should
insurance
not.
companies pick who they insure, because guess what happens? You pay your premium, it's not much. They figure they're not going to have to pay out to you. But those of you a little old,
Because that's how insurance works. It's a gamble. It's a risk. If you want health care, say you want health care. Health insurance is gambling and risk.
Yeah.
Literally.
That's part of the problem is that insurance used to be insurance, right? Just like your car. You don't pay car insurance and then call up Progressive to pay for your oil change and your tune up and your new tires and the exhaust that fell off last week. Okay. Insurance is for a catastrophe. So as soon as the federal government started meddling in the healthcare industry, subsidizing it, that's when it went off the rails, became unaffordable. Okay. And then you all let's talk about unions and how, let's talk about freaking medical associations and how they have been a problem too. But
the simple thing here is that they're using the wrong word. If you want health care for people with existing issues, go for it. They're not going to be insured because they are a terrible risk. Insurance is about risk.
that's what insurance is. So get your grubby little paws out of it, and then healthcare will become affordable again.
Or do something else.
And getting the federal government out of medical schools and the funding of colleges and all that stuff also will bring down the cost of medical school. So basically, the federal government makes everything worse.
That they need to be on health
My
care.
reasons to trust the
People
government.
expect it to be there. And when we are able to make it, and we are making it this way, when we incentivize people to be in the market, when we help people who might not be able to afford it get there, and we make sure then when you get sick and old, it's there for you. Because I heard people say, well, I don't want to buy into Medicare or whatever. Good luck buying health care once you get past 70. So look, the ACA works. We can continue to do better. Kamala Harris did that. The way she made everything better was negotiating those 10 drugs on Medicare for the first time in American history.
Thank you. Margaret?
Can I address that?
I apologize. We're out of time.
ahead,
We have a
Laura.
number of subjects to discuss. Margaret?
Let's talk about families in America. There is a child care crisis in this country,
Yeah,
and
because
the
of
United States
Democrats.
is one of the very few
Because of
developed
Democrat
countries in the
policies
world
closing
without
down
a national
childcare
paid leave
facilities.
program for new parents. Governor Walz, you've said that if Democrats win both the White House and Congress, this is a day one priority for you. How long should employers be required to pay workers while they are home taking care of their newborns? You have 2
None
minutes.
at all. Not at all.
Yeah, well, that's negotiable, and that's what Congress worked. But here's what the deal is. Americans
What?
sitting out there right now, you may work for a big company. Look, we're home in Minnesota to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies. Kamala Harris knows that in California. Those companies provide paid family medical leave. One is, I think they're moral and they think it's a good thing, but it also keeps their employees
They're
healthy.
rich.
We in Minnesota passed a paid family medical leave. You have a child, and I had to go back to work 5 days after my kids were born. This allows you to stay home a certain amount of time. What we know is that gets the child off to a better start, the family works better, we stay in their employers, we get more consistency in that. So Kamala Harris has made it a priority. We implemented it in Minnesota and we see growth. That's how you become a pro-business state. But the negotiations on it, and here's the issue, those big companies are able to offer it. Those of you out there who don't have it, just imagine what happens if you get cancer or your child gets sick. We know what happens. You end up staying home. In some places, that means no paycheck because you've got no protection on that.
That's what family
This is the
medical
case
leave's
of
for.
an economy that Donald Trump has set for the wealthiest amongst us. He's
The
willing to give
wealthiest
those
amongst the people are the
tax
ones that are
breaks to the
employing the
wealthiest.
people you're talking about.
He's willing to say, bust those unions up, do whatever. What we're saying is the economy works best when it works.
You guys are bringing immigrants in to work, and you're putting them to work. They're not going to be part of unions. What do you think they're doing? They are taking Oh my goodness gracious.
Most important people in our lives to take care of our children, or our parents to get paid the least amount of money. And we have to make it easier for folks to be able to get into that business and then to make sure that folks are able to pay for that. We were able to do it in Minnesota, and I'm still telling you this. We were listed as the best state. We're still in crisis on this. A federal program of paid family and medical leave and help with this
So from the
will
government,
enhance our workforce,
taxing
enhance
people.
our families, and make it easier to have the children.
So the government is supposed to take money from you to give it to people so they can
Wait,
stay home.
I want to hear. I want to hear.
Should
JD's
employers
answer.
be mandated to pay their employees while they are
I
home
have-
taking care of
I
their
have so
newborn?
much-
You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, first of all, Margaret, a number of my Republican colleagues and some Democrats, too, have worked on this issue. And I think there is a bipartisan solution here because a lot of us care about this issue. I mean, look, I speak from this very personally because I'm married to a beautiful woman who is an incredible mother to our 3 beautiful kids, but is also a very, very brilliant corporate litigator. And I'm so proud of her. But being a working mom, even for somebody with all of the advantages of my wife, is extraordinarily difficult. And it's not just difficult from a policy perspective. She actually had access to paid family leave because she worked for a bigger company. But the cultural pressure on young families and especially young women, I think makes it really hard for people to choose the family model they want. A lot of young women would like to go back to work immediately. Some would like to spend a little time home with the kids. Some would like to spend longer at home with the kids. We should have a family care model that makes choice possible. And I think this is a very important substantive difference between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's approach. I mean, look, if you look at the federal programs that we have that support paid family leave right now, the Community Development Block Grant, and there's another block grant program that spends a lot of money from the federal government. These programs only go to one kind of childcare model. Let's say you'd like your church maybe to help you out with childcare. Maybe you live in a rural area or an urban area and you'd like to get together with families in your neighborhood to provide
Democrat
childcare in the way that makes the most sense. You don't get access
that shut
to any
down
of these federal
childcare.
monies.
Hold on.
We want to promote choice in how we deliver family care and how we promote childcare because look, it is unacceptable.
He's
and
nodding
of course,
at
Tim and I have
JD
been on the
Vance. That's a
campaign trail a
mistake,
lot
sir.
the past 7 or 8 weeks. And
He
one of the
should not
biggest
be doing
complaints I
that.
hear from young families is people who feel like they don't have options, like they're choosing between going to work or taking care for their kids. That is an incredible burden to put on American families. We're the only country that does it. I think we could do a heck of a lot better.
Senator, thank you. You have also said, Senator Vance, many things about the American family.
Here's the thing, very simple. Anytime you tell me the federal government is supposed to subsidize all that stuff, I'm already mad. I don't have children. So I'm supposed to pay extra in taxes for you to be able to stay home with your kid.
Yes.
Why?
Cause feelings.
No, I don't think that's cool.
Expensive compared to the kinds of numbers we'll be taking in. Is President Trump committed to the $5,000 per child tax credit that you have described? You have 1 minute.
Well, what President Trump said, Margaret, I just want to defend my running mate here a little bit, is that we're going to be taking in a lot of money by penalizing companies for shipping jobs overseas and penalizing countries who employ slave laborers and then ship their products back into our country and undercut the wages of American
Kamala,
workers.
how do you feel about
It's
that?
the heart of the Donald Trump economic plan. Cut taxes for American workers and American families. Cut taxes for businesses that are hiring and building companies in the United States of America, but penalize companies and countries that are shipping jobs overseas. That's the heart of the economic proposal. And I think what President Trump is saying is that when we bring in this additional revenue with higher economic growth, we're going to be able to provide paid family leave, childcare options that are viable and workable for a lot of American families.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortage is we just don't have enough resources going into the multiple people who could be providing family care options. And we're going to have to, unfortunately, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to induce more people to want to provide child care options for American families because the reason it's so expensive right now is because you've got way too few people providing this very essential service.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah,
Governor
he's
Walz,
correct. It's that
your
simple.
ticket also has some child care tax
Literally,
credit
y'all.
proposals.
There was like a stupid
Do you
rule
think
that shut
Congress
down
will
like
agree to the
50% of Vermont's
$6,000
child
credit
care
for
facilities?
newborns and $3,000 credit for children over the age of 6, as your campaign has promised? Is that realistic?
Well, if these members of Congress are listening to anybody, I can tell you, and this is the biggest issue. Everybody listening tonight knows. I mean, I'm sure they were shocked to hear it's not that expensive. And let's be clear, whether it's 5,000 or 6,000, that pays you about 3 or 4 months. Let's be clear of where we're at on this. It's because we got out of an imbalance on this. We thought we were going to get by not paying people. I don't think Senator Vance and I are that far apart. I'm not opposed to what he's talking about on options. We've done scholarships types of things. I think we need to be open to making the case. But the issue here is, the question you asked is, you're not going to pay for it with these tariffs. That's just adding another $4,000 on the family and taking less. So not only do they not get the money to pay for that, they're $4,000 in the hole. That's Wharton School. That's his alma mater.
What is he talking
And so
about?
I think the issue here is
They're mixing
those
up
members
a
of
bunch of
Congress.
things
I
and
can't
getting
believe they're
themselves
not. When I go to
confused, I think.
businesses, sure they'll
He's
talk about
saying-
taxes sometime, but they will lead with childcare and they will lead with housing.
You have to get the money from somewhere if you want these additional services. What he's saying is, we're going to penalize people doing things that don't help America and people who are taking money from America and shipping it elsewhere, and redirect that into programs that help Americans. Not super with a lot of things, but that makes sense. I don't know how Tim Walz disagreed with that.
Appointed by President Trump and other Republican
this is,
presidents, looked at
the
the evidence
election.
and said there was no widespread fraud. The governors of every state in the nation, Republicans and Democrats, certified the 2020 election results and sent a legal slate of electors to Congress for January 6th. Senator Vance, you have said you would not have certified the last presidential election and would have asked the states to submit alternative electors.
There are
that has
things
been
happening.
called unconstitutional and illegal. Would you again seek to challenge this year's election results, even if every governor certifies the results? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sorry, guys.
We need to figure out how to solve the inflation crisis caused by Kamala Harris's policies, make housing affordable, make groceries affordable, and that's what we're focused on. But I want to answer your question because you did ask it. Look, what President Trump has said is that there were problems in 2020, and my own belief is that we should fight about those issues, debate those issues peacefully in the public square, and that's all I've said, and that's all that Donald Trump has said. Remember, he said that on January the 6th, the protesters ought to protest peacefully. And on January the 20th, what happened? Joe Biden became the president. Donald Trump left the White House. And now, of course, unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden administration. I believe that we actually do have a threat to democracy in this country, but unfortunately, it's not the threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. It's Americans casting aside lifelong friendships because of disagreements over politics. It's big technology companies silencing their fellow citizens. And it's Kamala Harris saying that rather than debate and persuade her fellow Americans, she'd like to censor people who engage in misinformation. I think that is a much bigger threat to democracy than anything that we've seen in this country in the last 4 years, in the last 40 years. Now, I'm really proud, especially given that I was raised by 2 lifelong blue-collar Democrats, to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong leaders in the Democratic coalition. And of course, they don't agree with me and Donald Trump on every issue. We don't have to agree on every issue, but we're united behind a basic American First Amendment principle that we ought to debate our differences. We ought to argue about them. We ought to try to persuade our fellow Americans. Kamala Harris is engaged in censorship at an industrial scale. She did it during COVID. She's done it over a number of other issues. And that, to me, is a much bigger threat to democracy than what Donald Trump said when he said that protesters should peacefully protest on January the 6th.
Governor?
Boom.
Well, I've enjoyed tonight's debate, and I think there was a lot of commonality here. And I'm sympathetic to misspeaking on things, and I think I might have with the senator.
Me too, man.
There's one though that this one is troubling to me, and I say that because I think we need to tell the story. Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this. And the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot and let the boiling water go up. He was very clear. I mean, he lost this election, and he said he didn't. 140 police officers were beaten at the Capitol that day, some with the American flag.
And everyone agrees that was wrong.
Just in there.
Here's the thing. Everyone agrees that that was wrong. No one thinks that the rioters were okay. No one in their right mind says that any of that was okay. But that was not it was fiery, but mostly peaceful. Okay?
Yeah.
The standard has to apply across the board. If the majority of the people thought that they were welcomed in because they were, and they were getting pictures of themselves with, Jacob Chansley, or is that what his last, is that
Something
what,
like that.
Jacob, the freaking,
The shaman.
the shaman, like, come on, bro, give me a break. And, the only people who died that day were Trump supporters. And they're lying about the cop who died. He died of an aneurysm days later, or like a day later.
Didn't they lock Trump's account?
Yes.
So you mean to tell me the one guy who could have maybe calmed things down, you didn't let him calm it down?
No. Correct.
Interesting.
President or anyone tried to overturn a fair election and the peaceful transfer of power.
Oh my God.
We
And here
know
are
that there
4
were
years
problems.
later in the same boat.
We-
I will tell you this.
Yeah,
that when this is over,
somehow
we need to shake
Hold on.
hands this
power was
election,
transferred.
and the winner needs to be the winner. This has got to stop. It's tearing our country
Okay.
apart.
So, but you don't have the
It
same
didn't start
standard
with
for
him.
Hillary Clinton.
Senator Vance, did
Yeah.
you want to respond to that?
What?
Stacey
Yeah, well, look,
Abrams.
Tim,
Yeah,
first
Stacey
of
Abrams,
all,
Hillary Clinton.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power on January the 20th, as we have done for 250 years in this country. We are going to shake hands after this debate and after this election. And of course, I hope that we win, and I think we're going to win. But if Tim Walz is the next vice president, he'll have my prayers, he'll have my best wishes, and he'll have my help whenever he wants it. But we have to remember that for years in this country, Democrats protested the results of elections. Hillary Clinton
Thank
in
you.
2016
Thank you.
said that Donald Trump had the election stolen by Vladimir Putin because the Russians bought like $500,000 worth of Facebook ads. This has been going on for a long time. And if we want to say that we need to respect the results of the election, I'm on board. But if we want to say, as Tim Walz is saying, that this is just a problem that Republicans have had, I don't buy that.
Governor.
January 6th was not Facebook ads. And I think a revisionist
What do you
history
think
on
caused
this. Look, I don't understand how we got to this point.
Fascism.
But the issue was that happened.
How
Donald
did we
Trump
get to
can
this
do
point?
it. And all of us say there's no place for this.
Wow.
It has massive repercussions. This idea that there's censorship to stop people from threatening to kill someone, threatening to do something, that's not censorship. Censorship is book banning. We've seen that. We've seen that brought up. I just think for everyone
Censorship
tonight,
was
and
COVID.
I'm going to thank Senator Vance. I think this is the conversation they want to hear.
Wow.
And I think there's a lot of agreement. But this is one that we are miles apart on. This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we
Everything
had
is
not
domestic.
seen.
God.
And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say, he is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose
Hillary
the
Clinton
2020
doesn't think
election?
she lost.
Tim, I'm
Stacey
focused on the
Abrams
future. Did Kamala
doesn't
Harris
think she lost.
censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further. But you guys attack us for not believing in democracy. The most sacred right under the United States democracy is the First Amendment. You yourself have said there's no First Amendment right to misinformation. Kamala Harris wants to use the power of government and big tech to silence people from speaking their minds.
And
that
they
is a threat to
silenced.
democracy that will
And
long
they
outlive
did.
this present political moment. I would like Democrats and Republicans to both reject censorship. Let's persuade one another. Let's argue about ideas, and then let's come together afterwards.
You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. That's the
can.
test.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
can.
Supreme Court
If there's
test.
fire.
Tim, fire in a crowded theater. You guys wanted to kick people off of Facebook for saying that toddlers shouldn't
Senator,
wear
the
masks.
governor does
That's
have the
not
floor.
Fire in a crowded theater. That is criticizing the policies of the government, which is the right of every American.
Boom.
The governor
He
does
just
have the
kept
floor for
talking.
1
He's
minute
like,
to
once he
respond to you.
realized his
Yeah.
mic was still good, he kept talking.
I don't run Facebook. What I do know is I see
Yeah, you
candidates
do.
out there who refused, and now
Mark
again, and
Zuckerberg
I'm pretty
already
shocked
talked
by
about this.
He lost the election. This is not a debate. It's not. It's not anything.
lost the election
anywhere
'cause you
Other
cheated.
than in
You
Donald
guys
Trump's world. Because
did.
look,
Because you
when Mike
interfered with the
Pence
election.
made that decision
That is
to certify
facts.
that election.
That
These
is
are
facts.
Why Mike Pence
facts.
isn't on this stage.
Facts.
What
What's
I'm
going on,
concerned
Robert J.
about
Creative?
is, where is the firewall with Donald Trump?
Who do you think is winning?
Where is the firewall if he knows he could do anything, including taking an election and his vice president's not going to stand to it. That's what we're asking you, America. Will you stand up? Will you keep your oath of office, even if the president doesn't? And I think Kamala Harris would agree. She wouldn't have picked me if she didn't think I would do that, because of course that's what we would do. So, America, I think you've got a really clear choice on this election of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
Governor, your time is up. Thank you, gentlemen. We will be right back with both of our candidates.
Closing
The CBS
statements.
News
This is gonna be
Vice
fire.
Presidential.
I don't
Listen.
like these broads. I don't like either of these broads.
They're corny. Let me explain to you. They already started the whole episode off cheating. Again.
Yeah.
You're going to hand it to Vance because, again, we saw right in the beginning, you guys started cheating. And then Waltz talks about the fact that they cheated in the last debate, and then remarks on the fact that they're not willing to cheat on this debate.
Oh, I guess we're not fact checking. Oh, I guess
Interesting.
we're not fact checking.
Like, it's
What
a debate.
Bitch.
I've seen debates. I've seen the Great Debaters with Denzel. You know what didn't happen during the Great Debaters?
The moderator fucking fact checking either side.
That's not a thing, bro. Your job is to get up here and cook or get cooked. It's
Wow.
not for mommy to save you.
I'm sorry.
You can't
I'm sorry.
square up.
I-
No, wait. You can't square up in the schoolyard with another kid and say, let's throw these hands. And then you get into it. And then you start losing.
Hang
And then
on.
you're like, hey, where's the ref at? Where's the coach? He's got his hands wrapped illegally.
What are
Where's
you
the-
doing, bro? What are you doing?
That's not.
I can't. I
This is wild.
I think it's weird. I think it's really weird.
Weird.
Weird. I don't have that. Wait, I was testing out you guys.
Okay.
I don't have all my things marked.
A few moments later.
Oh, okay.
You want to know? You want to know about cheating?
I need the weird. I need that soundbite, honey.
Hold on. I got something for you. This is good.
What?
They keep talking about, he talks about big companies and corporations.
Okay.
What they're supposed to do. Check this out. Instagram has been wild right now.
What?
Twitter.
Yeah. People talking.
Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill into law that bars local governments from enacting laws to require residents to show a valid form of identification in order to vote. And you get mad because people keep saying,
Hold on.
let me finish my sentence here. You keep saying that people claim that these elections aren't fair and things are cheating and yada, yada, yada. And then Democrats do stuff like this ahead of elections.
They're suing. Is it Alabama that's getting sued by the federal government for enacting a law that bars illegal immigrants from voting or something like that?
I don't know. But here's John Kerrigan talking about the First Amendment is a major block to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. Oh, you mean censor? You mean censorship? What Vance was just talking about. So happens is that if we deal with another COVID situation or something like that, we're not able. There's no legality in us saying, hey, I'm not with that. My body, my choice. I can't pull any of those cards. So if we want to have an abortion, it's my body, my choice. When another potential soul or set of DNA is involved, it's my body, my choice. But when it's just me by myself, it's not my body, my choice.
Okay, so the Justice Department is suing Alabama over effort to purge voter rolls. So every state, every Secretary of State is required, is mandated by law to is responsible for the voter rolls. Okay. And so one of the things, you're supposed to clean it occasionally. And one of those, you have to have a mechanism for that. So in Vermont, I don't remember what it is, but it's something like if the person hasn't voted in 4 years, then you send a notice to their mail. And then if they don't vote in 2 more elections, then you do. It's something, it's some system.
Yeah.
But then they actually have to do the process. So in Vermont, the Secretary of State just didn't do the process. And it's the same thing for the cities. And if you have county government, all governments are supposed to do this. And so Alabama is trying to clear their voter roll,
Look.
and the federal government is suing them ahead of.
When this is over, we're going to talk a little bit about elections. Let's hear this absolute nonsense. You got it muted.
Appreciate it. But look, the support of the democracy matters. It matters that you're here. And I'm as surprised as anybody of this
It
coalition
matters
that
that
Kamala
you're
Harris has
here.
built. From
What
Bernie
coalition?
Sanders to Dick Cheney to Taylor Swift. And a whole
They're on
bunch
the
of
same
folks
side.
in between there. And they don't all
It's not a
agree on
coalition.
everything, but they are truly optimistic people.
joking,
They believe in a positive future of
He
this
did
country
not just
and
say
one where
Dick
our
Cheney's
politics
name
can
like it
be
was a good
better
thing.
than it is. And I have to tell you that that better than it is the sense of optimism that there can be an opportunity economy that works for everyone,
Oh, you
not
mean
just
like
to get by, but to
economic
get ahead.
opportunity
And the idea
zones,
that
bro?
freedom
You
really
can,
means something.
you steal.
Not the freedom
You're
of
stealing
government to be
his.
in your
You're
bedroom.
stealing his policies and calling it the same name.
Look, we all know who Donald Trump is. He's told us, and as Maya Angelou said, believe him when he told you that. His first inaugural address talked about American carnage, and then he spent 4 years trying to maybe do that. Senator Vance tonight made it clear he will stand with Donald Trump's agenda. He will continue
'Cause
to
it
push
works.
down that road. Excuse me. Kamala Harris gives us a different option. Now, I'll have to tell you,
It's
I'm gonna
not
be careful
better.
about the quotes, but there's one that Senator Vance said that does resonate with me. He said, Donald Trump makes the people I care about afraid. A lot of America feels that way. We don't
Good
need
callback.
to be afraid. Franklin Roosevelt was right.
Good callback.
All we have to fear is fear itself. Kamala Harris is bringing us a new way forward. She's bringing us a politics of joy. She's bringing
No,
real
it's a
solutions for the middle
coalition of
class.
fear of
She's
Trump.
Politics of
centering
joy?
you at the heart of that.
Who the fuck?
All
Who,
the while
who in
asking
the
everyone,
told you
join
that
this movement.
politics
Make
was
your
supposed to be
voices heard.
joyful?
Let's look for a new day. Where
Also, it's
everybody
not.
Gets that
It's
We're
opportunity.
talking
built
about
around-
Everybody
murderers,
gets a chance
dealing
to
with
thrive.
murderers.
No,
For your
it's built
vote on
on-
November 5th for Kamala Harris.
They're built
Governor
on
Walz,
violating the
thank you.
Constitution
People
in
are
a terror
clowns.
terror of
That
Donald
was a
Trump.
Clowns.
Okay, I'll let you-
you folks at
Clowns.
CBS.
What I'm
support the American
saying
people
is
for-
that their coalition of people on the left already is built of people who have a terror of Donald Trump. That's what and want to violate our Constitution. Donald Trump is an actual coalition of people from different parts of the aisle. He is the unity candidate, no matter how you want to look at this. She's not.
poor ought to be able to turn on their heat.
She wasn't
in
at the
middle of a
Libertarian
cold winter
Convention.
night. That's
Convention.
gotten more difficult thanks to Kamala Harris's energy policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford a nice meal for your family. That's gotten harder because of Kamala Harris's policies. I believe that whether you're rich or poor, you ought to be able to afford to buy a house. You ought to be able to live in safe neighborhoods. You ought to not have your communities flooded with fentanyl.
Not a Democrat
and
neighborhood.
that too has gotten harder with Kamala because of Kamala Harris's policies. Now, I've been in politics long enough to do what Kamala Harris does when she stands before the American people and says that on day one, she's going to work on all these challenges I just listed. She's been the vice president for 3.5 years. Day one was 1,400 days ago, and her policies have made these problems worse. Now, I believe that we have the most beautiful country in the world. I meet people on the campaign trail who can't afford food, but have the grace and generosity to ask me how I'm doing and to tell me they're praying for my family. What that has taught me is that we have the greatest country, the most beautiful country, going to be able to achieve their full dreams with the broken leadership that we have in Washington. They're not going to be able to live their American dream if we do the same thing that we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. We need change. We need a new direction. We need a president who has already done this once before and did it well. Please vote for Donald Trump. And whether you vote for me or vote for Tim Walz, I just want to say I'm so proud to be doing this, and I'm rooting for you. God bless you, and good night.
Senator Vance,
Ooh.
thank you. And thank you both for participating in the only vice presidential debate of this election cycle. I'm Margaret Brennan.
And I'm Nora O'Donnell. And a reminder, there are just 35 days until Election Day. Please
You
get
are still
out
kinda
and vote.
trash.
And for all of us here
still
at
try to
CBS
cheat.
News,
So you got
thank
called
you
out.
and good.
Mute these broads. Listen, both they tried to cheat. And here's the thing. One host didn't check in when the other one was doing the fact check, and she should have, because she should have known very well that that was not the business. They did not care. It's nonsense. Oh, look at how diverse that is. Oh, weird. It's weird that Donald Trump's cabinet and coalition is all kinds of different viewpoints. He's bringing in libertarians, Democrats.
Yep, Democrats, libertarians.
Literally, he's got Democrats because the Democrat Party screws them over because they're not Democratic.
It's ridiculous.
Women
It's
of
so
color
ridiculous.
is Tulsi Gabbard is a Democrat woman of color who had to run to Trump because the Democrats wouldn't accept what she was saying. Veteran woman of color, Democrat.
You know that did you see that fake Joe Rogan endorsement that was going around? You guys, there was, if you saw a video that seemed like it was Joe Rogan endorsing Kamala Harris, it was faked by the Harris campaign. He was actually praising Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
So that was a clip of
Yes.
Joe Rogan talking about how great Tulsi Gabbard is,
He should
and
sue
they
them.
repurposed it as if it was him endorsing
Kamala Harris. He should sue them.
Okay.
They keep cheating. Couple things. So they keep talking about January 6th and censorship. And the reason Vance is saying what he's saying about censorship is that's the kind of things that cause January 6th. The oppressed,
Yeah,
when people
it's
don't
the
have
voice of the unheard.
that's what
AK,
they kept quoting,
according
right?
to the Democrats, rioting is the voice
Yeah.
of the unheard. I thought that was allowed now.
Yeah.
I thought political violence was allowed now.
And here's the thing, and I'm going to keep saying this till I'm blue in the face, which will be long because I'm black. I knew January 6th was going to happen like a year before it even took place.
Yeah.
And the reason I knew that is because I saw what they did with the Black Lives Matter protests and how certain people were allowed to say things and certain people had to be quiet.
Yeah.
White people had to be quiet.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Patriots had to be quiet, sit in your houses, do what we tell you.
Yeah, we're going to go riot in the streets. We're going
But
to
but everybody else,
we're going to brandish weapons and
everyone else could be a wild boy. Everybody else could knock down statues, but you guys have to sit there and take it. And I was like, and in my mind, I was like, that's not going to work.
It's not going to
There's going to be, every time you do something on this side, there's normally equal or opposite reaction. This is how humans are. And so, not shocking. So when they talk about John Kerry's talking about the Constitution and First Amendment being in the way, when they're talking about the Second Amendment being in the way, all these things that they're talking about, silencing people, the COVID stuff that happened, the virus that shall not be named, and St.
the
Fauci.
virus of the Immaculate Conception, go to the launch cart, go to the generally irritable store on launch cart,
Yeah.
get the virus of the Immaculate Conception gear.
When you tell people they can't talk about that stuff,
Lord
they
have
can't have
mercy.
conversations, they can't do science,
when
and
you
explore.
silence people, get out of
You
here.
want you
Get
want
outta here.
silence. You want silence and not science. You are censoring them.
Hey, I thought silence was violence.
Yeah, no science.
Oh,
The point is, they do all that, and then they're shocked at the reactions that happen. Nobody's shocked. It's a problem. And JD Vance is right. They talked about, he literally said he doesn't control Facebook. Have you guys seen what Zuckerberg said recently? What did he say, honey?
He said that the federal government asked him to censor stuff, and that they did. He literally was like, "Oh yeah, we totally said, they came to me and they were like, "Oh, whatevs, and it's bad, and so you should censor it." And they were like, "Okay." And so they did. And now he's like, "Oh, and that was wrong because now we see that it actually wasn't Russian misinformation."
You mean to tell me they affected the election by interfering with a business?
Yeah.
Weird.
And that's the thing.
Man,
They're
wait,
polling.
was that the only one?
No.
No, what was the other
There
one?
was the Twitter files.
Wait, what happened with the Twitter files?
It was all the same stuff. They were taking down and censoring certain accounts and yeah. So
YouTube.
Did
Did YouTube do some stuff?
Okay. So y'all, here's the deal. Oh yeah, definitely YouTube. Google is the devil. Real talk. I'm probably going to get taken down for that.
Yep.
Satan.
It's got deboosted.
Google is Satan. No.
Join
I'm
our
actually
Patreon.
I'm only barely kidding.
Join our Patreon. Follow us on
Make
Rumble,
sure you're
'cause we're gonna get
subscribed
kicked
on
off YouTube.
Rumble. And make sure you go to the comments section. I just added the link for Launchcart. I'll put it in the description too. Okay, so JD Vance won. That's my judgment. Okay, what do you think?
I mean, that's really good. I think he won. I'm a little biased because I knew Tim Walz was going to tell a bunch of foolishness.
Lies.
So let's be clear. J6,
Tell me lies.
we talked
tell
about
me sweet
fascism
little
already.
lies.
Everything I just listed to you, when we talked about Twitter, when we talk about Facebook, YouTube, and Google, you have to understand that's fascism. What's
Yeah.
the actual what's the textbook definition of fascism?
Let me Google it. They're probably gonna, you know what, y'all? Get your paper copy of a dictionary because these fools are literally changing the definitions of words in real time. Real time. Merriam-Webster Online, a populist political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leadership
Yeah.
that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation
Yeah.
and by forcible suppression of opposition.
So the first half of that,
Forcible suppression of opposition.
yeah. So the first half of that, nationalism, is just what a country's supposed to be like.
Populist. That's
That's-
what populism
It's
in and of
democracy.
itself is not bad.
It's democracy.
And I don't even think fascism doesn't have to be populist.
Correct.
Does it?
Well,
I mean,
according to
I don't
the
even
dictionary,
understand why that one has to do with the other.
according to these definitions, they try to make it a far right form of government
That's
held by
such-
one ruler or a small group.
That's
you
such-
mean the deep state,
So what? Communists are right wingers?
apparently.
Bull.
Under a single party. Because here's the thing. Mussolini was allied with the National Socialist Party, but that's a whole other conversation. One ruler or a small group. You mean the elites?
Oh, and here's what's
Wait,
here-
no. Hold on. Small group. That means elites. Either listen to the way Tim Walz was talking. Listen to what John Kerry is saying. They don't want us peons dissenting.
Correct.
Single party.
They don't want you to have the opportunity to argue or have misinformation.
Who
They
doesn't-
don't want you to have
No,
guns to be able to protect yourself.
Wait. One step at a time. Which party doesn't want to debate and prefers to have overwhelming majorities to just ram things through without discussion?
Democrats.
That's not a Republican. That's not a libertarian concept. That's Democrats. I've literally heard them say that.
Yeah.
Fascist governments are totalitarian and authoritarian. You know what you can't be totalitarian or authoritarian? You can't do that if everybody is armed. So
Correct.
the people who are going to want totalitarian and total power aren't going to want you to have a firearm to protect yourself or to resist the government.
No. This
So conservatives being pro Second Amendment means they're anti-authoritarian and totalitarian.
well, and here's what's funny. Populism, right? So populism, a political philosophy or movement that represents or is claimed to represent the interest of ordinary people, especially against the establishment. So you're saying that populism is like me against, the government or me against the bad guys or whatever. But then, okay, I can't even, hold on a second. So you make it sound like being a populist is a bad thing, but then you supposedly are about fighting for the ordinary people. Come on, these people cannot be taken seriously.
It's a bunch of foolishness. And it's very unfortunate. Cheating. We talk about the election integrity. Okay. We showed y'all where they're literally trying to pass laws where it's illegal to fight for things that would prove that there's no cheating in an election. Voter ID laws. There's nothing racist about that. You saw what Governor Newsom is
Nothing.
doing. It's wild.
And
to
they're
me.
saying there's something like there's several million not American citizens that they're expecting to vote in the elections this year.
And they know this.
So
they know they're here.
There's a bunch of places like Vermont that have allowed or created laws that allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. But here's the thing. When you go in to vote, how do you determine which ballots they get? Are you going to make the local versus federal on different ballots? Are you making sure they only answer what are you checking? Are you asking them, hey, are you a non-citizen? You don't get this ballot? I know they're not. I know because I've been to the polls and I don't get asked. Now, is that because I am white and talk like an American? Are they racially profiling me?
Definitely racial.
Racists.
But this is the whole thing. He talked about them being election deniers. Anyone who's paid any attention to any of the news knows that there were things that were done that were not legal by states right before the elections, changing laws,
illegally changing
that they're not
election laws.
Correct. The stuff where they interfered with these companies, that's not legal or fair. That's not fair. The wiretapping, the Hunter Biden laptop.
These people
that was the feds.
I can't even.
The Biden laptop was the feds. That means the feds knew it was real, and then they got those intel agency people to say it was a Russian hoax or whatever. So either they knew it was real and lied, or they didn't know what they were talking about.
Well, you know who doesn't know what they're talking about? Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, Joe Biden. They definitely don't know what they're talking about.
Who else denied elections? Was it Stacey Abrams?
Stacey Abrams, yeah. And everybody around. Dude, they had people on the news hacking into voting machines after 2016 to prove that Donald Trump cheated. That was a thing that happened. They did the same thing with freaking Bush. It's been going on for years. Stacey Abrams still says she's the governor of Georgia, okay? I don't want to hear it anymore. But all right, you guys, it is getting late here, and I'm sure on the East Coast, it is after 11 o'clock, y'all. Yeah, go to bed. Go to bed. All right, so if you have been watching this long, we thank you for watching. And if you liked the content, please give it a like. Make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, ring the little notification bell to make sure you get notifications of future episodes, and support our sponsors. So we've got the launch cart link in the description, or I'll put it in the description. It's in the comments, and we will hear from our sponsor, Pretty Little Patriot, because let's hear from Pretty Little Patriot, because ladies, if you're watching, fellas, if you have a lady, buy her something pretty, buy her something nice from some conservative gals. Okay. I'm also a conservative gal, so go to Launchcart and buy something from me. All right.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. See you next time. At least somebody out there knows that just because you're a conservative doesn't mean you want to wear boring, frumpy clothes. Y'all, check out our new sponsor, prettylittlepatriot.com. If you use the affiliate link below, you'll get 15% off. You can also use our discount code Generally Irritable to get 10% off of almost anything on the website. But, sales are already sales, guys. Come on now. My most recent purchase was this amazing gold belt that just goes great with anything. They've got rompers. They've got evening and event wear, you guys. Go check out the dresses there. They are super fun. You've got swimsuits, accessories, And of course, you have to check out their signature XX chromosome earrings. They're so cute, you guys. I love to wear them with a bunch of different earrings because I have multiple piercings in both ears. So check out prettylittlepatriot.com. Get something cute and fun today and use coupon code generally irritable to get 10% off.